Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and this is the last time you're going to be getting one of these updates, I promise. At least for these couple of conventions. So, there's 2 conventions that are going to be coming up. One is at the end of this week, the other one is going to be at the beginning part of February. At the end of this week, I'm going to be at Comic-Con in Birmingham, Alabama, January 26th through the 28th. If you're nearby Birmingham, Alabama, come check this out. This is one of the coolest conventions I have during the year. It's really fun. Trust me. Also, I'm going to be running the Horror Feud game show there. Should be a lot of fun. Some of you guys will get a chance to win Mr. Creepypasta merchandise. And if you manage to push ahead to the bonus round, you'll be able to win some horror films. The next one is Astronomicon, and that one is going to be in Sterling Heights, Michigan. Astronomicon is February 9th through the 11th. If you guys want to find more information on either one of these conventions, there's going to be a link in the description down below. And also, as a side thought, have you guys ever thought about having soft teeth? Like, I'm talking like if they were just flaccid the entire time but only got erect for food. Okay, sorry for taking up your time. On to tonight's story. About 10 years ago, I dated a masseuse named Valerie. Well, masseuse in training. She was passionate and enthusiastic, and she practiced as frequently as she could. That meant I got a ton of free massages. Obviously, since we were a couple, those massages would escalate into that usual thing that couples do, but it was only after she felt that she'd gotten a good practice session. At one of our sessions, Valerie looked a little confused, but also relieved. I asked her what was up. She told me that the sores that she had on the inside of her mouth didn't hurt anymore. We talked about those things before. See, she said that they weren't contagious, thankfully, but she'd had to endure them most of her life, and they were intensely painful, sometimes even debilitatingly so. Doctors prescribed an ointment for her to, I guess, rub on them or something whenever these kind of outbreaks occurred, but they barely took the edge off. Plus, she was deeply attached to the ideas of natural healing and homeopathy and all that kind of junk. So she very, very rarely used the medication. But that night, for the first time in a while, I could tell that she wasn't powering through her pain. She genuinely felt good, and she had no idea why. Well, her pain returned a few hours later. As always, she did her best to ignore it. Fast forward a couple of days. Another massage, another occasion for her sexy times. Midway through, she stops kissing me and exclaims, "That's it!" I didn't know what she was talking about. So she rolls off me. She stuck her fingers in my mouth. Not really sure what the hell was going on. I just sat up on the bed. I let her do whatever she wanted. She pulled her wet finger from my mouth and she stuck it in her own. I saw her rub the inside of her cheek. Her face brightened and she informed me with complete certainty that my saliva was taking away her pain. I laughed and I said something encouraging despite thinking that she was nuts. Then she hopped back on me and I completely forgot what she had said. The next day I was lying face down on her massage table. She was doing her usual outstanding work. Well, I stared down at the floor, through that little padded hole where one's face goes. And without any warning, there was a blinding pain in my head. I passed out. I have no idea how long I was unconscious. When I came to, I tried to get up, but I was completely immobilized. I couldn't turn my head or lift my arms. I felt like I was taped to the table. And not only that, there was something metal in my mouth. I couldn't close my jaw or even dislodge the thing with my tongue. I yelled around it. Valerie, who had apparently been standing next to me, simply said, "Shh." I saw her hand and arm appear in front of my downturned face. She held a small glass baking dish, which she placed on the floor under my mouth. "I'm sorry if the speculum is uncomfortable," she said. At the mention of the word, I gagged. A thin column of saliva drooled from my gaping maw and landed inside the glass container. She reached under and gathered a dollop of the fluid on her fingertips. Her hand disappeared from my field of view, but I knew where it was going. I heard her moan with relief. "I'm not sure how long I'm going to keep you here," she informed me, "but don't be loud." In response, I yelled. A hideously sharp pain erupted from my lower back, right about where my left kidney is. "That's a 3-inch long pin," Valerie said. "Please don't scream anymore. I hate hurting people." And I shut up. As the hours went by, the bottom of the pan grew slick with a cloudy puddle of my saliva. I heard Valerie walking around the house, doing laundry, washing dishes, basically everyday activities. The clatter of pots and pans told me that it was almost dinner time. I was ravenous. I estimated it had been almost 24 hours since I had any food. Glorious aromas wafted from the kitchen as she cooked. My saliva glands went into overdrive as I drizzled their secretions into the waiting container. I heard Valerie walk in, and she placed a plate piled high with spaghetti and what appeared to be a pork chop directly next to the collection pan. My mouth oozed. "You can't have this," she whispered in my ear, "but feel free to enjoy the smell." She walked away and turned on the TV. The room filled with sitcom banalities as my body leaked its desire for the meal into the waiting dish. I wanted to cry. At some point, I fell asleep. When I woke up in the morning, the plate of food was gone. The house was quiet, and I assumed Val had gone to class. I gargled out a weak yell, but there was no way anyone would have heard it. I was so incredibly thirsty. The smell from the collected saliva was absolutely horrendous. I could see particulate matter dotting the glass, probably old food that had detached from between my teeth. My mouth felt terribly dry, saliva still leaking from the glands, but it was thick, almost like corn syrup. The color was milky gray. When it hit the stuff that had already been in the pan, it separated like salad dressing. Oily liquid swirled at the top, and I couldn't believe how much I'd produced over the last couple of days. The sound of the front door opening heralded the return of Valerie. She walked over, putting her sneakers into my narrow view. I felt her scratch the top of my head. "You doing okay?" she asked, sounding genuinely concerned. I muttered something obscene from around the speculum. She bent down and picked up the pan. Saliva sloshed thickly against the sides. "I'm gonna let you go today," Val informed me. I choked out a sigh of relief. I saw a knife for a second and was certain that she was about to cut my throat, but instead, she sliced through the duct tape that was holding my head to the table. I craned my neck upward, and I tried to shake out the awful muscle cramps. In front of me, I watched Val carefully pour some of the accumulated spit into a glass. She brought it to her lips, she took a tiny sip, and I almost threw up. She didn't swallow right away. I could see that she was swishing it around her mouth and then aerating it as if she were sampling a fine Brunello. She smiled at me as she swallowed. Valerie reached into her purse, pulled out a small handgun. Of course, she had a fucking gun. I didn't move. She calmly told me that she was about to cut me loose, but if I ran before she could talk to me, I'd get shot. I nodded. She cut the tape away. I was suddenly self-conscious as the smell of my old spit was replaced by the ammonia odor of when I had pissed myself those 2 times. "Don't worry about it," she whispered. After everything was cut away, she apologized in advance before pulling the tape off of my head to unsecure the speculum, still violating my mouth. Chunks of hair came with the tape, and I winced. I let the metal instrument drop to the ground. My jaw felt like it had been pummeled by a prize fighter. I stood up, and Val pointed the gun at my chest. I stretched slowly, then sat back down. She took another small sip before she spoke. "When you leave, I know you're going to call the police. And I know I'll get arrested, but I just want you to know how much I appreciate you for helping me." I didn't say anything. She was nuts, obviously. She gulped down the rest of the cold saliva and put the glass on the coffee table. The pan was still about 75% full. "You can go," she told me. I grabbed my car keys from the table and I left, and as soon as I closed the door to her apartment, I sprinted as quickly as my cramped legs would allow, got to the car, and drove away. And as I went home, I called 911 and I did my best to explain what happened. They said they'd stop by her place and see what was going on. Then they'd visit me at home. Sure enough, a few hours later, the police visited my apartment. They told me that Valerie was dead. Self-inflicted gunshot wound. She left a note, but all it said was, "You'll understand soon enough." A year later, I started getting sores in my mouth. The pain was indescribable. They'd last for a couple of days before bursting, and they'd eventually heal, but 2 weeks later, they'd just reappear. I was missing work because I couldn't even breathe through my mouth without searing agony, and the doctors gave me some awful-tasting ointment to put on them, but it might as well have been water. Nothing helped. I didn't want to. But I started sleeping around. Men, women, it didn't matter. Partner after partner crossed my bed, and finally, I found one. And then another. Then another, and 7 years later, it up to a gallon of production per day. The flavor took some getting used to, but hey, the taste of the medicine doesn't matter when it actually works. The trick, I learned, was to keep my producers hydrated and fed just enough so that the quality doesn't drop off. Early on, my little cows, that's what I call them, used to be pretty boisterous in the mornings when I went to collect their milk. But they've calmed down over the years. I just hope they know how much I appreciate them. And deep down, I bet they do. Hey there, everyone who's listening on YouTube, or those of you who are listening on the podcast. It's me, MrCreepyPasta, and before you head out for the night, I just wanted to let you know about a couple of things. Without you, the show doesn't take place. So, if you guys would like to support the show, or if you guys would like to get your hands on a couple of cool little things whenever new things come out, check out patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta, and any support that you guys show, I really appreciate. For everyone who's already donated to the Patreon, I really appreciate it. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for that. If you guys are looking for more Creepypasta Storytime, there's a new video that's uploaded to this channel or uploaded to the podcast every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday now. You can be able to get more from me at facebook.com/MrCreepyPasta or on Twitter at MrCreepyPasta and then the number 0. Thanks so much for listening, kids, and for your support. And sweet dreams.